This was an attack on London and the United Kingdom, but it was also an attack on the free world.
Another attack in London, another in a long list of terrorist incidents across Europe in the past 3 years. So how did Europe become such a big target for terrorism? Hello, I'm Anand Naidu in Washington, D.C., and this is The Heat. Just days after a suicide bombing rocked the city of Manchester, the United Kingdom is reeling from a terrorist attack in London. This is the third attack in the UK this year. For more now on how the city is reacting, CGTN's Natalie Powell joins us from London. And Natalie, this is the second attack in the UK in less than a month. It's also right in the middle of a major cricket tournament across the country with hundreds of thousands of people attending sporting events there. What's the mood like in the UK right now?
Well, I think initially following the attack, the mood was very much one of not again. As you've said, this was the third terror attack to take place within as many months, following on from the Westminster attack at the end of March, which was a very similar style to this one that took place. Then, of course, we had the Manchester attack in which 22 people lost their lives. And what was shocking about that is that many of them were teenagers, young people, or parents picking up their children from a pop concert. And now this attack on Saturday night, in which was an attack really against people enjoying themselves in bars and restaurants on Saturday. And while what took place was very much shocking, it perhaps wasn't necessarily a shock to people here in the UK. And the reason that I say that is that everybody here knows that the terror threat level is currently at severe. That's its second highest possible level, meaning an attack is highly likely. Following on from the Manchester attack, it was raised briefly to critical, meaning an attack would be imminent, and then dropped down to its second highest level. So yes, while these events were very tragic, perhaps many people can say because of that terror threat level that it perhaps wasn't completely unexpected. The mood has moved on, of course, since Saturday night, and it appears to be now very much one of resilience. And while it's very cliched to say this, people are quite simply getting on with their lives. In fact, I was at London Bridge earlier on where the attack took place. The tube station there has reopened, albeit partly. And what was perhaps even more amazing is that in that area, I saw many people in restaurants and in bars simply just getting on with their normal Monday night. And perhaps nowhere has this feeling of resilience been more evident, of course, than in this huge vigil that took place in central London just a few hours ago. And in the words spoken by London Mayor Sadiq Khan, and we can listen now to what Sadiq Khan had to say earlier on.
London stands in defiance against this cowardly attack on our city, our people, our values and our way of life. As the Mayor of London, I want to send a clear message to the sick and evil extremists who commit these hideous crimes. We will defeat you. You will not win.
Now, Natalie, this attack in London was another sort of unsophisticated, low-tech attack. A truck that's plowing into a crowd with attackers jumping out. How can Europe confront this new type of threat?
You're absolutely right. A very unsophisticated attack, relatively speaking, and therefore very difficult for police to predict. We're not talking about large-scale attacks. We're talking here about lone wolf attacks, or in this case, the work of 3 people potentially talked about and discovered and organised within the comfort of their own home. And that is very difficult for police to deal with. We know, of course, that one of the attackers named so far in this incident had been known to police, but he wasn't deemed a priority, and there had been no evidence that he was planning an attack. But of course, lots of questions are going to be raised about whether the police are doing enough, given that they knew this man was on their radar and existed. What the police will say to this, however, is that it's impossible for them to follow every single person of interest. They simply don't have the staffing numbers, they don't have the money, the budgets, the funds to be able to do that. And of course, if they were to detain detain every person of interest. That would obviously cause some human rights issues as well. What they can do, however, is respond to these attacks. And there has been a lot of praise for the way that police responded to this attack that took place on Saturday night. Within 8 minutes of the very first phone call about the attack taking place, police had been at the scene and killed all 3 of the assailants. So we're not talking 8 minutes until they responded and were at the scene. They had actually stopped that threat within 8 minutes of the very first phone call being made. In terms of what can be done, though, in Europe, we've heard, of course, UK Prime Minister Theresa May talk in detail about this. She wants to review counter-terrorism strategy here in the UK to help deal better with this more fragmented style of attack that we're seeing. Although she was very keen to praise the counter-terrorism operations, we know that since March, since the very first Westminster attack that took place this year at the end of March, 5 plots have been unfoiled by police. But of course, since that attack, 2 plots, the Manchester plot and now this London attack, have been able to take place, which is far more than anyone would want to see.
Thanks, Natalie. That's CGTN's Natalie Powell reporting from London.